Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am finally, this late in January, bringing you a 5-star reads of 2017 video. So this is sort of my version of a favorite books of the year video. They are definitely the books that I enjoyed most at the time, but I give out 5-star ratings like purely based on gut emotional response. That's sort of what distinguishes my 5-star ratings from my 4-star ratings. And so my 5-star books of the year are not necessarily the books that I end up recommending most often, that I think are most worthy literature. They're just the things that I liked the most when I was reading them. So why am I doing this instead of a more critical and objective list of, you know, the best books that I read in 2017? Well, because the books I genuinely think are most worthy are the ones that I end up recommending all the time. You see them come up in my monthly recommendations, in Top 5 Wednesday videos. I reference them all the time. And this is honestly going to be a little more fun to film because it's a bit of a more eclectic list. And, you know, I am going to have to justify myself. And also, it's less work. Let's just be honest. It is less work because I can just, you know, go on Goodreads and pull up the list of my 5-star reads of the year, and I don't have to do any super duper thinking. I gave a total of 12 books 5-star ratings in 2017, which is an average of 1 a month. So for me, that means it was a pretty good reading year. Like, that's sort of what I aim for, like 1 5-star read a month. So my first 5-star rating of 2017 was the book that I finished on New Year's Day of 2017 last year, and that is When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore, and it is such a shame that I have not yet read either of her other books, because I own them both. I'm actually probably going to be reading Wild Beauty, or at least starting Wild Beauty, as soon as I finish one of the books that I'm currently reading. Basically, she writes really lush and beautifully evocatively written magical realism with queer and Latinx characters, and that is what this is. I've probably talked about it way too much on this channel already. So there's that. The next one I have is Binti Home by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the second book in the Binti trilogy. The third one is out now. I have it. I haven't read it yet. I'm very excited. This is definitely a middle book in a lot of ways, but I actually liked it more than the first book, which felt like a contained story. But this, I think, really gave the character of Binti space to grow and develop. This is an Afrofuturism sci-fi series about a young woman from Africa who goes to university in space, abandoning her very traditional Himba people, and then she comes back in this book and has to face all of the ways in which she doesn't fit in with her family and her culture, even though that identity is so crucial to who she is and how she got through the events of the first book. Next, I have one that I really haven't talked about much since reading it. That is When the Sea Turned to Silver by Grace Lin. This is one of the ones that I sort of forget about, and about how much I liked it. This is a middle grade book. It's the third in a companion series that starts with Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, and the second book is Starry River of the Sky. These are based on Chinese folklore. I think they skew younger than most of the middle grade that I enjoy and sort of the target audience. These really do feel like kids' books, but I absolutely loved this one, the way it brought together some things from the other 2 books, and the stories within stories. I feel like Grace Lin has grown in how she incorporates the stories that she uses in her writing since book 1. The author is also the illustrator and the cover artist. There are these beautiful full-page illustrations, and it's just a physically beautiful book and a very charming, whimsical, magical story. So next we have basically like the book where I'm going to have to hem and haw and make excuses for my 5-star rating, because I definitely can't stand by this book and say it's a great piece of literature, and that's A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, the third and final book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. Now, I know there are things that are not great about this series. I think there are things that are not great about where the series trajectory was from book 1 to book 3. It didn't feel well planned to me. I talked about this more in the video where I reviewed this series. I will link that review. And you know, I have good booktube friends who are willing to come out and say all of the things they thought were really poorly done about this book. And I can't disagree with any of it. But, this is one of those books where I was like physically incapable of putting the book down until I was done. Like, I didn't want to sleep, I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to shower. I was a wreck, I was a mess. This book was so over the top in so many ways. There's like no way I could take it seriously, but I also couldn't put it down either. And when a book does that to me, like, it has to be a 5-star rating, because that happens to me so infrequently. This is a book where, like, the world is burning, everyone's dying, there's so much angst. I don't think I can handle that in a book all that many times in a year. It's not something I necessarily go out looking for in a book. It's not necessarily something that's going to stick with me forever as a reader. I don't think I'll ever want to reread this series. I'm happy that I got them from the library instead of purchasing them. I don't need to own copies now that I know what happened. Like, I never need to read it again because the readability of this series for me was all about, like, what's gonna happen next. But I would be lying through my teeth to you here if I took the, like, critical objective high road and told you that I didn't enjoy the heck out of it, because I did. Okay, next we have The Girl Who Soared Over Fairyland and Cut the Moon in Two by Catherynne and Valente, the third book in the Fairyland series. This is a series where even, like, most of its fans are capable of discerning in quality between the books of the series. I am completely incapable of that. For me, every book in the series is an automatic 5 stars, just because every book has things in it where it's like I can't give a book with this sentence or this paragraph or this chapter in it anything less than 5 stars. Every book has something that absolutely captivates me. This book in the series in particular has lots of themes about growing up. It also has this through line running through it where people are insisting that September treat inanimate objects, things, as people. And of course what's really going on here is that it's a commentary about what happens when you treat people like things. I thought it was wonderful, and I know there are people who think this is one of the weaker installments in the series, and I just can't see it that way. Next, I had an outrageous filming error, which is why I'm inserting this footage to try to fix it. The next book on my list is, in fact, The 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. But when I filmed this video originally, I picked the wrong book off my shelf, and I was holding up the Encyclopedia of Early Earth the entire time while I was talking about this book. I was looking at it, I was saying things about The 100 Nights of Hero, and I was somehow not registering at all that the book I was holding up to the camera was the Encyclopedia of Early Earth. This is the one that I gave a 5-star rating to. I read it first. I also liked the Encyclopedia of Early Earth, but I only gave it 4 stars, not 5. So now I'm going to cut back to me being silly and holding up the wrong book. I've talked many times on my channel before about how this is the first graphic novel that I ever gave a 5-star rating to. I think it may still be the only one I've ever given a 5-star rating to. I absolutely love this. It's got my, you know, fairy tale story within storytelling stuff going on here. There are things that are referencing and sort of retelling fairy tales and stories that you may or may not be familiar with. It's got like some dark, angry feminist stuff going on. It's got a central female-female romance. It's witty, it's smart. I loved it. I loved everything about it. So yes, laugh at me all you want. The book that I was saying those things about is this one. Next, we have another one that I don't own a copy of, although this one someday I do hope to own a copy, and that is Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. This is the 4th book in the Death sub-series, which up until now was not my favorite sub-series of the Discworld books. I know a lot of people really love Mort. For me, it was just you know, okay. And then I think for me, I've enjoyed the Death series more and more with each installment. This one was a 5-star read. I love Susan, who is Death's granddaughter. I love the mythology of Hogswatch, which is the Discworld's Christmas, that is the central focus of this book. I think this is one of my favorite Discworld books I've read so far. I absolutely loved it. Next, we have a book that I don't have my copy of because I've loaned it to my mother. She is reading it now. She is loving it too, and it is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I feel like this book is well known enough that pretty much everyone already knows what the deal is with it, and you know whether or not you're gonna fall into the camp of love it or not. This reads like a big hunkin' massive 19th century novel, except it's also an alt history and a fae fantasy, and it's written in such a clever, witty way. It has all sorts of footnotes, and it's so long, and I loved that it was so long because it felt like it was never going to end, and I didn't want it to end. If you want actual coherent thoughts, you can go watch my video where I discussed this book and how much I loved it, as well as The Once and Future King and how much I hated that one. Next, I have another one with Strange in the title. I have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is, of course, a YA, the first in a duology. I loved the main character of this book, Laszlo Strange, so much because he is a dreamer and a scholar and so passionate in his pursuit of knowledge. I love how unconventional Laini Taylor's storytelling in this is. I feel like this is YA fantasy that I haven't read before. It felt like something brand new. And of course, because I also love books that deal with like weird dream stuff, I loved all of the like weird dream stuff that happened in this book. Next, I have The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, which is the third and final book of the Broken Earth trilogy. Of course, because this is the finale in the trilogy, I can't say all that much about it, except that I loved how this tied everything together. I am in awe of this series, in part because it's the sort of series that does feel very well planned from book 1 to book 3. This is a series where book 1 makes more and more sense in retrospect as you read each following book, and the answers that this book gave about the world of this series, I thought it was absolutely incredible. Next, we have another one that I don't own because I got it from the library, but I would like to own a copy someday, and that is A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge. This is a middle grade, like, whimsical, nutty fantasy about this bonkers underground city. I've done a full review of it. You should go watch it. Basically, if you know me, you know that smart, bonkers, bizarre, whimsical middle grade is... I'm a sucker for it. I can't get enough. And in a similar vein, my final 5-star read of the year is another wild and whimsical middle grade fantasy novel, and that is The Boy Who Lost Fairyland by Catherynne and Valente. I just wrapped this up in my last video. I read it in December. I already talked about this series. I love it so much. This introduced a new cast of characters, and I loved them, and I loved the new perspective, and I can't wait to read the final book in the series. I'll probably read Glasstown Game before I read The Girl Who Raced Fairyland all the way home, so it might be a while until I read it. But anyways, this is my last one. So anyways, here those are. Again, my 5-star reads of 2017 minus the few that I don't have print copies of right now. Let me know if any of these were also favorites for you, or if any of them are on your TBR. Also, let me know if you had any favorites or 5-star reads of the year that you think I might also enjoy. Anyhow, I hope you are having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.